everyone we've discussed in this sermon series so far cowers before Abuela Alma in this movie. Alma's granddaughter Luisa is losing her mind because so much is required of her physically to take care of the family and protect the town. So she has to keep chanting the mantra, no pressure. We watch Luisa's physiological reactions as her body cries out, stop! This has to stop. Isabella produces flowers and makes everyone happy with the literal beauty she creates. But she's locked in one mode. Pretty makes perfect. This granddaughter wants to please her abuela to the point that she is willing to marry someone just for the good of the family. That is some old school arranged marriage crap right there. The third granddaughter, Mirabel, didn't get a gift and spends all her time trying to earn her grandmother's love through non-miraculous means. As such, she makes it her goal to save the family from the cracks she sees taking over the house and threatening the Encanto. And in the process, she finds her long-lost uncle, Bruno. Okay, you get to do this with me once. Got it? Once. Here we go. I say his name, and you know what to do. Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. Okay, everybody got it out of their system? Because, child, today is the day we talk about Bruno. Mirabel recognizes that each of the relationships I mentioned above is damaged. And every time Mirabel helps a family member realize they're in a toxic place, Abuela gets mad and Mirabel gets reprimanded. Shame on her for putting the family before the miracle. But Mirabel can see that Luisa needs to relax. Isabella needs to flourish under her own creativity. And Bruno, well, he just needs to be found. And thanks to some faithful rats, he is. See, on her quest to find the reason the house is cracking, Mirabel discovers Bruno's final vision, his picture, as Hunter described it earlier in the video. And what she discovers in that shattered picture is that she is at the center of it. Spoiler alert, Mirabel finds Bruno. The rats steal the shattered vision and return it to Bruno. Mirabel follows the rats, and lo and behold, Bruno never left the family at all. He's just been living behind and in between the walls. Let that one sink in for a minute. Who has built walls to protect themselves from family members? Who is still hiding in a closet? The metaphors are unending with Bruno's living situation. His friends are rats who perform on little puppet stages that he built for them. It's not like Cinderella, more like a child putting a dress on an angry cat and cramming it into a baby buggy. He's created alter egos named Jorge and Hernando to entertain himself because he is actually patching the cracks from inside the walls in another attempt to save the family. But worst of all is Mirabel's realization that Bruno has made his own home, his own nest, on the other side of the family's dining room. Mirabel peers through the slats on the wall and sees everyone's seat at the giant table. And as she lowers her gaze, she sees the wooden table Bruno has pushed up next to the wall and the intricately designed plate he has carved into the wood alongside his name, Bruno. My gift wasn't helping the family, he explains, defeated. But I love my family, you know. We don't talk about Bruno because we don't want to see him, but God, he wants to see us. I mentioned week 1 that every time I watched Encanto, I went to my therapist convinced I was a new character. So yes, Bruno was one of those characters that I identified with. Bruno says his gift wasn't helping the family, and that statement will probably be addressed next week by Brian, but really, Bruno's gift is misunderstood. So it gets retold as a different narrative. That narrative sticks, and he doesn't get to be himself. Let me explain. Bruno has the gift of seeing the future through visions. So when someone approaches him and asks for a vision, Bruno tells him what he sees. Your hair will fall out, he tells the priest. Your fish is going to die, he tells a townswoman. But instead of recognizing that men's hair loss is a real thing and everything, including goldfish, dies, the townspeople begin to interpret Bruno's visions as prescriptive rather than descriptive. In other words, they decide he makes the bad things happen through his visions, and that's why we don't talk about Bruno. He's a bad omen. Bruno's gift is misunderstood, so it gets retold as a different narrative. That narrative sticks, and he doesn't get to be himself, tell his own story, grow, change, or evolve. If peeking through the slats, looking into the dining room, and the plate carved into the wood table didn't yank a few tears out of your eyes, let me tell you what happens next. Mirabelle's hyper-ambitious spirit is subdued by the gravity of Bruno's lifestyle. She crouches carefully next to her shrunken Tio and asks, why is he hiding if he still loves his family? Bruno explains that Abuela panicked when Mirabelle didn't get a gift as a child. She begged him to look into the future to see if there was an explanation. So he did. But when he saw Casita, their magical house, cracked with Mirabelle at the center of it, he knew how that would look. So he ran away. He ran away to protect his niece because the narrative the community created for Bruno named him as a doomsday, angel of death sort of character. So Bruno ran. He couldn't protect Mirabelle because of this narrative, and he couldn't live in that darkness anymore. But instead of under the covers or into the closet or even outside the mountains of Encanto, Bruno went inside the walls, deep into the heart of Casita, to hide, to stay, but hidden, to love, but from afar, to participate, but on the side. But when Mirabelle brings back Bruno, when the shepherd brings back the lost sheep, when the woman finds the coin, it's not Bruno who needs to apologize. It's us. The family and the townsfolk rewrote his story, and they need to say they're sorry. Who is the black sheep in your family? Who ran away or was pushed out? Who still lives in the closet? Who still has walls built around her heart? If it's you, good news, Jesus is coming for you. If it's not, then it's time to let that family member tell their own story. The lost sheep and the lost coin seemed an easy pick as scripture for this one. The shepherd has a whole flock to take care of. Why would he worry over losing one? Abuela and the miracle had the whole town to worry about. She couldn't break herself to cry over the loss of a son with a scary gift. But as I delved deeper into Bruno's story and the idea that families write off family members or write them into narrow stories. And recognizing that families frequently forget to let those members out of those stories and stereos that they've been typed into, I remembered one of my many favorite stories in the Hebrew oral tradition. It's the story of Jacob and Esau. Do you remember it? I referenced it week 1. Esau is the strapping older brother, and Jacob is the mama's boy who steals Esau's birthright. Is it coming back to you? They are twins, but Esau was born first, entitling him to the family blessing, the birthright. Shifty old Jacob, accompanied by his mother, trick his dad, Isaac, into believing that Jacob is Esau, so Jacob can get the blessing instead. They put dead animals on his arms, which is disgusting, but apparently necessary because Esau was a hairy guy who, I guess, didn't bathe often. Jacob's mom cooked her husband's favorite stew, and together they stole Esau's birthright for Jacob. After Esau begs his father for a second blessing, only to be turned away, Jacob takes his cue, exits quietly stage left to Haran, thus saving his own neck and hopefully finding a new blessed life for himself. If Jacob's mom was right and Esau was planning on killing him, Jacob didn't want to be around to let that happen. You know the rest, right? There's Jacob's ladder, then the, I married the wrong daughter shenanigans. And then Jacob swindles his uncle/father-in-law, and lo and behold, now someone else wants to kill Jacob. Jacob could benefit from some integrity. There might be fewer bounties on his head. So, after all that, Jacob decides to turn to the land of his father, to return home. But you know who still lives there, right? Esau. That's right, the first family member who wanted to kill him. But Jacob is great at lying and swindling and pretending, so he puts his best foot forward and begins the penance process through presents. Yes, to let Esau know he's coming and get Esau all warmed up to the idea of not killing him, Jacob sends Esau a bunch of presents. Now, while Amazon is delivering all those sheep and goats in record time to Esau, Jacob has his famous wrestling with an angel incident in the desert and gets a new name. Congrats, Jacob. They will make endless art from this story and you will usually be naked. But Esau is still on the horizon, and who knows if all of this gift giving has appeased him. So Jacob separates camp into his favorite wives and his least favorite wives. Let me tell y'all, this guy's a real winner. And finally, he's close enough to see the whites or maybe reds of Esau's eyes. But to everyone's surprise, including those of us reading the story, in Genesis 33 verse 4, Esau runs up to Jacob, who has been bowing before him, but instead of clobbering him, Esau embraces Jacob, falling on his neck, kissing him and crying with him. And that's what we do to family members, right? We don't allow them to grow. I mean, Jacob's a jerk pretty consistently through this journey, but Esau? The last thing we heard about him was fury, and Jacob assumed Esau would always hate him. But it turns out if we let people tell their own story and grow and evolve and be themselves, they might just end up the hero. Esau had made a wonderful life for himself and clearly had forgiven his brother, so Jacob cried and said to his twin, "Truly, to see your face, Esau, is like seeing the face of God." 20 chapters earlier, Hagar, the slave girl mother of Ishmael, dying in the desert, is the first person to see God. And Esau is the first person of whom it is said, "Seeing you is like seeing God." Neither of these two are considered to be in the Judeo-Christian lineage Or as Mirabel says, sometimes the family weirdos just get a bad rap. Bruno was not a naysayer or a fortune teller of bad fate. His gift was misunderstood. He was misunderstood. He was robbed of a happy self. He was denied the chance to defend himself or tell his own story. Bruno, we're sorry we stuck you in a box and then you stuck yourself in a wall. Even in our darkest moments, there's light where we least expect it, Mirabel famously says towards the end of the film. Careful, who's standing in darkness, peeking through the wooden slats, longing for a seat at the table. It might just be the light you most needed to see. Amen.